What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal_Gupta95 on Twitter. And also joining us tonight, the brilliant Michael Burland, important nonsense analyst here. Mike, how are you doing tonight? We got a big show going tonight. How are you? How are you prepared for this?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, Super Bowl is always bittersweet, right? It's the final game, but just that it's the final game. We have to wait forever to get our football fix. But now excited to be here and learn from you guys with the betting stuff. So you guys are the experts. I'm here to just throw a couple out there, and you can point me in the right direction as well.
No, Mike, you come on this show all the time. You're a shoe-in for this show. We love to have you. And of course, it's been a long season, my friend. Another long one. I still can't believe they let us do this every single week. It's been a great ride, and I'm super thankful to get to do these shows with you, my friend. And now we get to break down the big one. So how are you feeling? How are you doing? Are you ready to break it down?
I'm very excited to be here for the final show of the season, culminating in what should be a great matchup. Expecting another classic in the big game this weekend. So, yeah, very excited for this game. Very excited for the season to end, to be honest, and excited to head into draft season because this is a pretty big draft for some of us. So, really excited for that. So, it should be a good show.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good one. And it's funny because Mike said, "Oh yeah, it's the last game of the season." No, Mike, we all know as well that it only starts up ever so soon. But yep, we get a little bit of R&R after this, but until then, we're definitely gonna break it down. And also joining us tonight, Chris Salazar. He is going to be by just a little bit later to give us some of his betting knowledge, his betting tidbits on the game. So that's going to be a ton of fun to break it all down and launch into it. So first off, though, gents, there was another big, headline story from this week, and that was the NFL awards. So that's what we're going to start off with. The NFL awards were pretty hectic. It starts off with the MVP, Lamar Jackson. I think a lot of us considered that a pretty much a lock. I know we talked about it quite a bit on the show, how he was fantastic. He was very, very good for that Ravens team and definitely deserving of this award. The funny tidbits from this one, he got 49 of the 50 first place votes. Shout out Aaron Schatz on that one. Gotta love an anti-hero. He gave Lamar a third place vote. In fact, Dak came in at second, and then a couple players from this game, CMC at third and Brock Purdy at fourth. My biggest thing about the MVP award is how can the narrative on a player like Brock Purdy be, he's put into this system to succeed. His ability to, operate within that system is impressive, but this is still Kyle Shanahan's system. Yet Kyle Shanahan never gets any love for Coach of the Year here. I'm befuddled about that. What did you guys take of this award specifically?
No specific thoughts on any of these awards, to be honest. I think the NFL honors happens way too late in the season. We're so, our minds change so much during these playoffs, and seeing Lamar go out the way he did a couple weeks ago, makes it tough. I mean, obviously he earned his MVP this season, no doubt about it. But after seeing, a lackluster performance once again in the playoffs, you can understand why, Josh Allen got down one first place vote or multiple first place votes because, he was fantastic throughout the regular season for most of the regular season, and also had a great playoffs. He just ran into a buzzsaw on Mahomes, so kind of understand that. Also right there with you on Shanahan. I thought he should have won last year. Has another great chance to win it this year. I mean, there's not any other coaches, I don't think, in the entire history of the league that are taking Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy to Super Bowls. It's not happening. So
yeah,
he definitely should have won it at least once during his stretch so far in San Fran. So that's a big one. All these other awards were, pretty obvious. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. And Mike, what's your take on also just even this award or even any of these awards on this list? We have a lot of interesting things. Joe Flacco winning comeback player of the year off of getting more second place votes, as opposed to DeMar Hamlin having the most first place votes with 21. Unfortunately, Baker Mayfield probably would have been one of my higher up votes there, and he kind of got shafted there. What's your take on any of these awards through this list here?
Yeah, the MVP was pretty clear after the when the Ravens dismantled the Niners and the Dolphins. It's pretty clear Lamar is going to be the MVP, and I kind of agree. I wish they would do it like directly after the season, because we do get a little swayed by like what happened in the playoffs, even though we don't take that into consideration for these awards. The defensive player of the year was interesting. There's some debate on should it have been TJ Watt. There's a lot of people talking about that one. I agree with the Shanahan stuff. It's like it is a very narrative based award. So it's like, well, the Browns weren't supposed to be good when they lost Deshaun Watson. So it's like you kind of you penalize Shanahan. It's like, well, you guys are supposed to be good, even though they're supposed to be good because of Shanahan. But taking four quarterbacks the Browns started this year and having four different starting quarterbacks going 11 and 6 they go. That's pretty impressive. And then shout out to the Texans. They did what the Jets did last year, 2 Rookie of the Year awards. So I don't know how often that's happened, but it's back-to-back years now. So was it the Jets last year or was that 2 years ago? I could be mixed up.
It was last year.
I was last year.
Last year. Okay. That's good. And everything else, I think a lot of these were pretty easy to predict by the end of the year.
Yeah, and absolutely. And the thing is, too, is it's not that Kevin Stefanski, winner of Coach of the Year, wasn't deserving of the award. He absolutely was. It's just odd. It's honestly a funny tie into what narratives play into the voting process for some of these awards, which is super interesting. Another funny tidbit about Coach of the Year is that DeMeco Ryans and Kevin Stefanski actually tied in total votes at 165. Kevin Stefanski wins the award because he had one more first place vote, which I think is a bit of V and I were talking about it a bit before the show. I think DeMeco Ryans was just as worthy as anybody of winning the award potentially. And why can't we have co-coaches of the year? I think that having as many points is just as valuable. And that was interesting. And of course, we talk about Rookie of the Year, CJ Stroud. Fantastic. He had 48 of the 50 first place votes. 2 of them going to Puka Nacua. Will Anderson, the defensive player of the year, was so close. I was actually shocked and actually excited to see Will Anderson get the love that he did, because he did have a great rookie campaign. He was fantastic. Jalen Carter, who was also fantastic, just barely edged out. 16 first place votes for Anderson, 14 for Carter, and 14 for Kobe Turner, who is fantastic. So much fun to watch Kobe Turner play. Other highlights, CMC, obviously dynamite. The only player even remotely close to him was Tyreek Hill. We talked about defensive player of the year. Myles Garrett, he was fantastic, huge pressure machine, but TJ Watt, fantastic at closing out those sacks, and he was amazing. There's going to be a lot of argument, but one thing that I want to get across is that there are so many good defensive players and especially good edge rushers in the league right now that to miss out on this award isn't a slight on TJ Watt. TJ Watt is fantastic. Myles Garrett, fantastic. All of these guys, Michael Parsons, fantastic. These guys are fantastic players, and to miss out on the award shouldn't be a huge shunning to them, as much as I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers fandom is very upset about it, and they have a right to be, but in the end, Myles Garrett, super, super deserving of this award. And then one thing, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Mike, but I just want to get one out. Jim Schwartz, Coach of the Year. My vote for Assistant Coach of the Year, Steve Spagnuolo, baby.
Yeah.
V and I have been all over the Steve Spagnuolo train, and I think we're going to get into it a little bit tonight, huh, V?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. All right. So let's break into how we got here a little bit, gents. The games themselves were interesting, to say the least. So the first game on the list, Kansas City. Wow. Pretty much commanded this game from start to finish. Baltimore really just didn't show up so much in this one. KC controlled the ball, controlled the pace. Their D, Steve Spagnuolo, baby, 3 forced turnovers. That was crucial. And Zay Flowers, some crucial rookie mistakes down the stretch, including a taunting penalty that you just can't have happen late in a game like that. It's a really tough look. But Mike, I want to get your take on this one in the AFC because I know exactly where V's going to go with it here in a minute. So we'll warm that one up here on the stove. So Mike, let me get your take on how the AFC title game ended up shaking out.
Yeah, it's just one of those. The Chiefs are the new Patriots. I mean, we kind of knew they were, but it's just things. Obviously, they're really good. Things bounce their way. The ball bounces their way. Teams just don't show up against them at times as well. It's had to have been the Ravens' worst game all year and probably wasn't even close. So, but yeah, Spagnuolo, I mean, did an amazing job. I was a little curious as to why the Ravens didn't run the ball as much. You know, even Lamar, he's sitting in the pocket a lot. And it's like, come on, man, you're like the most gifted player with the ball in your hand. Just take off and go, you know, and it was just frustrating. But mistakes, you know, the Zay Flowers made a couple of big ones with the penalty, the fumble reaching out to the goal line. So it's tough to see for the Ravens fans because I do think they had the best team all year, but obviously that doesn't matter when it comes down to just one game. So, but going back to Spagnuolo, it's pretty amazing. I mean, he had obviously the Giants defense that took out the Patriots and they're undefeated. And man, he has to be up there as you don't hear his name being thrown around for another coaching job. I know he had his opportunity before, but maybe he doesn't want it. I don't know. Maybe he's happy just being a defensive coordinator, but pretty impressive stuff for sure.
Well, we're happy that Steve keeps winning us some money. So thank you, Steve, from the bottom of mine and Vishaal's heart. V, what happened in this one?
Well, it started with Kansas City just unbelievable on offense. The thing I took away from it early in this game was just the 3rd and 4th down conversions for Kansas City on their first couple of drives. Just insane plays by Mahomes and Kelsey on some of these conversion attempts that just are backbreakers if you're a defense. They, for the most part, Baltimore played these plays very well. They had everybody covered up. They just could not get to Mahomes for whatever reason. Guys just cannot get to him and bring him down. He's just able to move. He looks like a crazy person when he's on the run, but it's effective. I don't know how to describe it, how to explain it. He's just able to get away from pressure and extend plays, and then he just is able to make back-breaking throws that extend drives, and you blink and you miss it. They're in the end zone because they're just slowly but surely extending these drives and making plays and scoring touchdowns. So that's what happened early. Second half was all about Kansas City's defense. Not sure what Baltimore's plan was offensively. They had plenty of opportunities. They just couldn't do anything when they had the ball. I don't know what their game plan was specifically. I don't know if they were trying to focus on the run, if they're trying to focus on the pass. They didn't really get Lamar, moving on the ground as much as you probably would have liked. They just not anything that you could really understand what Baltimore is doing offensively for most of this game. And then, like you mentioned at the top there, Zay Flower rookie mistakes. You can't be taunting guys that's a rule. Even if you disagree with it, it's a rule. You can't be doing that. You're down 10 points. Why are you taunting defensive players because you made a nice play, but you're still down 10 points. You're not in the end zone yet. You can't be doing stuff like that, costing your team. So unfortunate stuff like that was really cost Baltimore this game.
The worst part about the taunting is that I feel like the ref gave him the leeway because he pushed and threw the ball. It was like, dude, he probably would have let you off if you just pushed him and talked and left. But unfortunately, that's not how it went down. And those are crucial mistakes that cost them this game. And just like Mike said it at the beginning that, even if you're deciding, hey, we don't want to use Lamar as a dedicated runner, we don't want to put him so much on design runs, especially with this defense out there, you gotta get active in the run game and keep this Kansas City defense on their heels. This is something we've talked about pretty much all playoffs long. Steve Spagnuolo is one of the most creative defensive coordinators. He's empowered by Andy Reid's offensive creativity as a play caller. He as well gets very creative with his defensive play calling in terms of how often he brings defensive backs on blitz, how many stunts in games he runs, and things like that. They are a very active defense, and it gets teams confused, and they force turnovers in exactly how it happened in this game, forced Baltimore into 3 crucial turnovers, and they just had no answers at all. And it was, I think, a surprise to literally everybody that this game ended out the way that it did. I know that, V, when we talked about this game, we were definitely still on the side of the points, and giving too many points right now to Kansas City is just hasn't been good for opposing teams. But I didn't see this one. It really did not feel like a 1-score game. It felt like Kansas City was pretty much in control for most of it. So.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part about this game, too, is that despite not winning everything, Baltimore is now facing the consequences of what teams go through when they actually win championships, and that's losing coaches and then potentially big-time players in free agency. You lose a guy like Mike McDonald, you lose a lot of assistant coaches. This is really tough loss for Baltimore because now you have to go back next year in a division with a healthy Joe Burrow, potentially, whatever quarterback situation we're going to find in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. But this is not going to be easy. Honestly, right now, looking at it 6-7 months out, I might not pick Baltimore to make the playoffs. They're just going through a significantly harder road next year. And, we'll talk about Detroit, San Francisco next, but Dan Campbell talking about, this might have been our one shot and it's not going to get easier from here on out. I think that really more applies to Baltimore than it is going to Detroit next year because of the losses Baltimore has already faced and is going to face in terms of their personnel and then returning players for other teams next year. So this was just a really tough loss, bad loss for them that could haunt them for years to come.
Yeah, and you absolutely raise a good point with what they're going to face in the North when you say they're essentially facing 2 Defensive Player of the Year candidates, the Defensive Player of the Year winner, and, Joe Cool over there in Cincinnati. So,
yeah,
good luck.
To add on that, it's, coming into this year, it was like, holy crap, the AFC stacked with quarterbacks, right? It didn't completely play out that way just because of injuries and, Mahomes and the Chiefs had a little bit of a down year. Josh Allen, the Bills were kind of messing around there for a while. But all those guys, the Herberts, the Burrows, if they stay healthy on top of Lamar and Mahomes and Allen, it's like, yeah, it seems like it's very easy to be like, well, we'll be back next year, but you just never know if you're just going to be in that position, down one score in the AFC Championship game at home. Like, yeah, that's tough, and especially because their defense showed up too. No points allowed in the second half. I think that was even a little bit more surprising. It was, it's not like the Chiefs scored 30 points or 25 plus points. It was 17 and none in the second half. So yeah, that was
in like V said, 3rd and 4th down conversions. Like, you can just feel the air go out of the building when Valdez-Scantling catches that 3rd, 4th down, whatever that was in 15. Like, that's just, that's effectively the end of the game right there, obviously. But it was just plays like that all night where guys are just in the right place at the right time. I think it sounds like a cliche, but people say Andy Reid, saves his good plays for the playoffs. And I think, like you just said, they weren't very flashy, but they definitely controlled it really well. So, yeah. And, V, you just alluded to it. And I'm actually even more excited to break down this next game. This game was absolutely insane. And I want to say incredible if I don't feel like people are going to hate me for downing the Lions for not winning it at the end there. But what a great game this was. Fantastic start to finish. Detroit, obviously, off to a huge first half, 24-7 in the first half. They got outscored 27-7 in the second half. And the Niners overcome 2 close playoff games. That could very much come into play in this next game against Kansas City, where Kansas City's playing with house money. They're a dog again in the playoffs. And this is something, V, we've been talking about all the way up to this point, as you, my friend, have predicted every single step of the way. You can't fade Kansas City. And with San Francisco playing as close of ball as they are, that's going to be something that we're talking about here in a minute when we break down the actual game. But V, let me first off get your take on how did this one go down? What did you make of this one?
Man, what an insane roller coaster for those of us that had Detroit +7 or +7.5. I mean, it's like you're rolling, then you blink and you miss it. Detroit's down 10. It's like, am I really about to lose this bet that seemed it was 100% of a lock for the past 45, 50 minutes? And then Detroit, like fourth down 10 with like 2 minutes left. You know you need two possessions. They couldn't get the field goal because you know you have to go for the onside kick anyways. They decided to go for it on fourth down. Thank God they scored there to cut it to 3. If Detroit would not have converted that last fourth down, I don't know if I could have ever placed another bet again because that would have been the biggest bad beat ever on Detroit +7 or 7.5, wherever you got it. Thankfully, it worked out. This was a fantastically crazy game. Just honestly, it's tough to really take too much away from this game. It just felt like this game was the epitome of you don't know which way the football is going to bounce. It's just this game was all randomness and luck, if I'm being honest. Like there's way too many plays on here that you can never repeat again if you try to 100 times. Whether there's the Ayuk catch, the Josh Reynolds drop ball on fourth down, the Gibbs fumble, all these different things that most of them went in San Francisco's favor. But I'm not going to attribute too much of this as skill or preparation or anything like that. This felt like luck, randomness. Not too much to take away from it. Unfortunate by Detroit to not be able to pull this one out. But unlike Baltimore, they're getting their coordinators back. Young teams that's still pretty much under contract. They'll work out whatever they need to with Jared Goff. Still have all their picks, whatever it is. So no worry that they're not going to be back next year in the coming years. And nobody even knows who the best quarterback is in the NFC because it could be Jordan Love for all we know. That's how crazy the NFC is compared to the AFC. So no concerns for me about Detroit running it back. But yeah, fun to watch.
And something you highlighted, and we highlighted in the last game too. I think the AFC is the conference of high-end quarterback play, and the NFC is the conference of high-end team play.
Right.
All the top-end teams are very, very good. All of the quarterbacks might be a little bit more questionable. It's not like they're bad by any means. You have guys like Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts. They're quality quarterbacks. I mean, Brock Purdy, he's had a fantastic regular season. They're good quarterbacks, but this is the team of team ball, and Detroit plays some of the best team ball that we see. And before I get Mike's take on this, we're going to welcome in Chris here. Chris, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Great to have you. Everybody give a hand for Chris. We are breaking down the NFC Championship game, Chris, before we get into the big game. But I want to get your take on how did the conference title games end out for you? What was your take on those?
Did you guys go over the AFC already, or did you just start on the NFC?
We did. So yeah, so take into both of them for sure.
All right, then I'm pretty sure you guys probably touched on it, but the AFC, I think the story of the game was Baltimore's lack of running. I mean, I know that I'm not trying to say that Lamar Jackson isn't a good quarterback. He just won the MVP, 2-time MVP. He's a really good quarterback, but we all know that he's a running quarterback. He needed to have more initiative running, and they just needed to call better plays as far as running the ball and not panicking. It seems like when they went down 14-0, they felt like the game was over, and they had to just throw, and there was no reason for that. They were in the game the entire time, and their defense kept them in it. As for the other game, I just felt bad for Detroit. I mean, San Francisco came all the way back. It just seemed like Detroit, for like the first time in the Dane Campbell era, took their foot off the pedal, and that does not seem like something that they were normally doing, and it just seems like they were okay with the lead that they had, and then they choked it away. It was really unfortunate to see, but honestly, I don't mind this matchup. I think because I'm a diehard Patriots fan, I kind of didn't need Patrick Mahomes to stop winning so many Super Bowls, so that's why I'm going for the Niners in this one.
Well, that's a decent take right there. I like to hear it. Unfortunately, though, it's probably going to take a little bit more than our yelling at the screen for that to happen. And real quick, I want to touch on something that V said too. Dan Campbell, if you're watching this, don't ever take your foot off the pedal. Keep on gambling. I know it didn't work out this time, but we gamblers love you, buddy. We love you. So keep it up. We appreciate it. And Mike, now we get to launch into your analysis of this amazing game. Mike, how did you see this one going down, and what did you make of it?
Yeah, this one it hit home a bit because my dad's a Lions fan, and obviously we know the history, and it was kind of thrown in our face this whole playoff run. And he's very, very pessimistic, as he should be as a Lions fan, but he thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl before this whole game, and he just felt this was the year. And man, they had it. And there's just one of those plays, one of those Josh Reynolds drops, one of the two, the Gibbs fumble, obviously, the IU catch, just everything. And it's just, again, as a fan of multiple teams across multiple sports who've never won a championship, I just feel I always sympathize with the Lions fans, the Bills fans, stuff like that. I want to see them get over that hump. But yeah, it was tough. But I agree with what V said about just a lot of luck. Again, one play just going differently, that we have a different outcome. And I agree with every decision Dan Campbell made, to be honest, except for the only one I probably disagreed with was that Montgomery run to get that touchdown on the third down, because they had to burn a timeout. And I know they were going to go for an onside kick either way, but at least you still had 3 timeouts and you could still get the ball back, whether you get the onside kick or not. So that was probably the only decision where I was, questioning it just a bit. But all the going forward on fourth down, I agree with it. You got to be aggressive, and it actually worked out. If Reynolds catches one, and the other one was not, it kind of broke down because of Nick Bosa. But yeah, just tough for Lions fans, and I know it's going to be tough for them to be watching the Super Bowl. But yeah, I hope they make it back next year. So they're fun to watch for sure with Dan Campbell at the helm.
I don't think any of them are watching this game. Let's be honest.
No, not at all.
Too painful for them.
No,
my dad was thinking about boycotting it, but he came around to it. It was like, yeah, I'll watch it. It's just, I understand though. Like, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and they should feel good though, because they took a great team in San Francisco right to the brink. So they should definitely be proud of that. But now we get to head into the big one. The big game here. We can't even really talk about the name of it live. The NFL Championship. Look at your title there. So now we break into the big one, the Superb Owl, as some like to call it. So some key trends for this one as I was looking into the game here. But let's start off with, incredibly, KC is +2 in this one. I know which way Vishaal is going to be leaning. Game total on this one, 47.5. And some trends to break into. Kansas City is 3-0 against the spread at Allegiant Stadium. Granted, all those games are against the Raiders, so they don't really matter. But there's a nice little tidbit for you. Kansas City also 4-0 against the spread as dogs this season, something V and I have talked about. They had not been dogs at all this season until week 18 when they sat all their starters and then headed into the playoffs as all dogs. They have covered and won all of those games, obviously, or they would not be here. San Francisco, on the other hand, they possess a 5-4-1 against the spread record as 7-point favorites or less, which sounds really bad. But if you add even a little bit more context to it, they're actually 3-0 against the spread when they're favored by 3 points or fewer. So that's actually another very strong case for them in terms of the trends. But if we go back to just recency, and since Christmas, these teams have gone in virtually different directions. Kansas City 5-0 against the spread since Christmas. San Francisco 1-4 against the spread since Christmas. But as V and I have talked about at length this season, it's hard to count San Francisco out at points, even when they go through these rough stretches, because then they can turn around and cover spreads like nobody's business and make it look very easy. On the other hand, Kansas City has been fighting for every single point on the board this playoff run, and they've looked great, as good as any team. They're playing great defensively. They control the ball offensively. So those are impressive feats. In terms of injuries, though, there are some key injuries for this one. Kansas City, Joe Thuney, All-Pro. He did not practice, unfortunately. It's looking more and more like he is not going to be able to play in this one. Which
he was already officially ruled out.
Has he already been officially ruled out? Okay, that's good. Now we can move past it, because that's been a question for the whole week leading up to this point, is what's up with Joe Thuney? Is he going to be able to go maybe? And unfortunately, he's not going to be. McKinnon, Edwards-Helaire, they were both limited as of Thursday. I hadn't looked at the updated practice report for today, but they were limited as of Thursday. On the San Francisco side, George Kittle, Ambry Thomas, Eric Armstead, all limited as of Thursday. So some pretty key playmakers, a little bit banged up. Eric Armstead, obviously a fantastic player. You already know about George Kittle, and Ambry Thomas, who a lot of people might not know, but is a crucial piece of that secondary. So those are some tough losses for those guys. Hopefully everybody is going to be able to play. Being limited in participation means that they're probably likely to go, but we'll have to see. And now we get to break down exactly what's going to happen with this one. And V, I'm going to start with you because I love where you're going to go with this. And I already know. V, how is this one going to play out?
I mean, we've been talking about it all season, haven't we? I mean, it just feels like almost every week we were talking about one or two of these things. It was Kansas City against the spread, or it was the under in a Kansas City game. We have the opportunity to bet both of those again this week at good numbers. You just cannot pass up that opportunity. I will start with Kansas City +2. Mahomes 9-3 straight up as an underdog in his career. 10-1-1 against the spread. That's honestly incredible, unfathomable. It's crazy to even think how has he been an underdog 12 times in his career, given how good he is. Not only that, but now it's 3 straight games that he is an underdog. Seems like people are just not learning their lessons, so we got to take advantage there. Mahomes has been virtually flawless so far this postseason, averaging 240 passing yards per game, 5 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. He's completing 68% of his passes. I think it's not sexy, it's not splashy, it's not the same Kansas City offense of old, but it is very efficient. They take care of the ball, they convert on third down, and they just beat you. I mean, they put up points and they stop you from scoring. That's as much as you can ask for, and that's what they've been doing. On the flip side, I think we talked about already in the last game, but it feels like San Francisco has been relying a little bit too much on luck so far throughout this postseason. We talked about it against Detroit, but it was the same thing against Green Bay. You had that missed field goal by Anders Carlson. Both of the Jordan Love interceptions were just inexperienced quarterback play where he's kind of throwing across his body, inaccurate passes, short passes where he's throwing it behind Aaron Jones, where, on a third down, forcing Green Bay to punt. These are things that are not going to happen when you're playing Patrick Mahomes, and you cannot be in a situation against Kansas City where you go down early in the game, you start off slow, and then expect to be able to come back against them. This is not a team you can do that against. It worked against Green Bay, worked against Detroit. I cannot imagine that that's going to be true against this Kansas City defense. So have to take Kansas City +2, and then we're just going to hit the under again. It's been hitting all season, under 47.5. During the regular season, Kansas City allowed 17.3 points per game, second fewest in the league. San Francisco allowed 17.5 points per game, third fewest in the league. Kansas City's gotten even better during the playoffs, allowing just 13.7 points per game in their 3 playoff games. San Francisco has fallen off a little bit, allowing 26 points per game in their 2 games. Since the start of December, only one Kansas City game has gone over 47.5 points, and that was against Buffalo in the divisional round. Definitely going to take the under on this one. It's been working for us all season, not going to stop now. So I'll start with that, and then we can circle back on some other picks later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Kansas City on the under, most unders in the league. Last time I checked, they have gone over only twice out of the last 8 games since week 14, excuse me. So impressive. Like we've talked about, shout out Steve Spagnuolo. He's been a fantastic coordinator for them. He's really affecting the game, how his guys are playing. You have Trent McDuffie out there. He is being used as a weapon on the defensive side of the ball in the slot. He blitzes, he covers your best interior receiver, and he is going to have a heck of a matchup this week, and it's going to be good to watch. I can't wait to see it really play out. And I'm obviously right there with you too, V. I love when we're getting 47.5 with Kansas City. One of the numbers over one of those key 45s on the game total, something that we talk about all the time. If I can get that full 2 points higher than 45, I'm extremely happy. And this line has been very consistent throughout the week, so it's getting pretty even play. It makes sense. It is a pretty good game total for this one. And I really do like the under here as well. And when we talk about the line itself, there's a ton of stuff or a ton of value you can get from shopping around here. A ton of these books are moving this line in different ways, and it's very interesting. It looks like here, even just on Betting Pros, ESPN Bet is putting it at somewhere around 1.5. And FanDuel, one of the biggest sports books in the nation, putting it at 2.5. So wherever you lean with this game, obviously we talk about it every time, shop around, make sure you look around at the other places so you can get that value no matter which way you slide on the scale. So I completely agree. And I even love it even more at plus 2.5. I can't get enough at that. So
I think it's going to go to 2.5 in more places because as the news comes in the last day or two, there's a number of 6-figure bets coming in on San Francisco late in the week. So, if you want to wait another day or two, don't be surprised to see it hitting 2.5 in most places. And I would not be shocked if 1 or 2 books even put it at San Fran -3 if more big money keeps coming in on San Francisco. I wouldn't expect it, but I would not be shocked if that happened in some places.
V, a Vegas native, for anybody who was not aware, he is plugged in directly to all of the big odds makers. They contacted V before they set these lines. No, I'm just kidding. But V, very plugged in. Gotta love it. We're going to talk to you a little bit later about how electric the city is for sure. So, yeah. But Mike, I want to get your take on this one. A lot is on the line for this one. V and I can be biased though. Just because we're on the side of Kansas City doesn't mean that you have to be. Which way are you leaning for this one? How do you see this game shaking out?
Yeah, it's just when you think about it, it feels like everything favors San Francisco. You're just like, okay, San Francisco. And it's like you get to Mahomes, and it's just like, well, they have Mahomes. So it feels like Kansas City is just going to pull this out again, especially with getting the 2 points if we're just talking strictly from the betting point of view. But the game itself, I just think Kansas City is going to find a way to pull it out. I agree about San Francisco kind of getting lucky these last 2 games. They haven't been that great actually in close matchups in general, at least this last year, the last couple years. Shanahan can get a little conservative sometimes as well. And, like we said, the ball just kind of bounced their way due to, a bad throw by Jordan Love or, a fumble by Jahmyr Gibbs or something. And that's just not going to happen against the Chiefs and Mahomes. It's really not. I mean, it's very unlikely that will happen. So we've seen it. This team just turns it on, whether it's Andy Reid just saving plays for the playoffs or, MVS making these amazing catches when he couldn't even catch a cold like all season long. It's just like, man, they just step it up. So I agree with you guys. I'm taking Kansas City. I want to go the over just because that's what I want to see. We want to see a high scoring matchup. But if I'm putting money on it, I'm probably going with what you guys are saying and taking the under. So, but hopefully we get like a 50+ point over under. So, but if you're going to put money on it, I would definitely be taking the under. So yeah, it's it's tough, man, but I really do think Kansas City's just going to pull it out again.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you just touched on there too, and something that V touched on obviously, is that Kansas City has just been playing mistake-free football for this playoff run. Patrick Mahomes specifically, only quarterback with more than 40 dropbacks to have no turnover-worthy plays. Not only no interceptions or fumbles, no turnover-worthy plays. So he didn't put a ball on the ground. He didn't have a dropped interception. He did not have an, very questionable or dangerous throw this entire time. He's been fantastic. So that is something that you just cannot replicate. And on the other side, there's been some questions with how Brock Purdy has had his decision-making in the playoffs, where Brock had a fantastic regular season. And while he's, not been the worst problem for San Francisco's offense in terms of why these games are close by any means, he's had some plays get away from him, some questionable throws that he's made. And those could be the difference makers against a team like Kansas City. But that's going to be something that we have to see play out, because this is where it really all matters. Like you said, they have so many things going for them in San Francisco. It's really hard to sit there and say, like, you don't have a shot in this one because you're going up against Kansas City, because they really do. It's just they haven't quite shown their best ball over the last month plus of the season to close it out. So I completely see why we're all kind of leaning that way. And we'll get Chris's take on the game here in a little bit. Chris has had to step away to take care of some stuff, but we'll get his input on it here in a second. But that is the way we lean. And I know Chris might think a little bit differently, but we're going to get into some other stuff here. Oh, I have the injury report there that I didn't show, but we have anytime touchdowns is the first place that I want to stop. Most popular bet. Everybody loves touchdowns. I know Chad Ochocinco's touchdown parlay is doing some numbers over there for Bleacher Report. Some interesting takes from our friend Chad Ochocinco, undoubtedly. But there's a lot of value on this board, I think. And even if we're leaning on it under, I think there is still some significant places to target on this board. And I wanted to hear your guys's takes on this one. One of the ways that I was leaning here, obviously everybody's going to love Christian McCaffrey. That's why he's at minus 210. There's just no value there. Of course, Christian has a great opportunity to score. And actually, even surprisingly, Isaiah Pacheco is at minus 115. I thought that he might have a little bit more value there, but unfortunately not. Travis Kelce, an interesting one at even money. Rashee Rice right behind him. The two receivers from San Francisco. We have Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and then you have Kittle. And then you have Mahomes, Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and a lot of some other long shot guys that have really long odds. But when the ball starts flying, these guys are very possible to get in the end zone. So, Mike, I want to see your take on this one because I have a feeling you're going to have a unique input for this.
Yeah. So, whether it's smart or not, the way I don't gamble too much, but when I do, I'm always going for the bets that can 5 times, 6 times my money, right? So I'm kind of interested in the Jerick McKinnon anytime touchdown. I just like the narrative of the last year, him going down at the 1 to seal the game, giving up his opportunity to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Like, you have to dream of that as a professional football player, right? That's what you dream of your whole life. And just to go down there, obviously it's a team game. You get the win because of it, but man, that must've been hard. So I can just, whatever reason, I can just see them. All right, we're going to get you your touchdown this year. And obviously, you can't play around too much. You got to score. They're not going to mess around. This is the Super Bowl, right? So Kansas City, they always get super creative when they get down to the goal line, and they do all these interesting plays. It's not just one guy, 2 guys scoring the touchdowns. It's everyone kind of getting involved. So I kind of like the Jerick McKinnon, plus 650 bet there, just kind of getting him the touchdown that he could have had last year, and getting him that the guy's been huge for them the last 2 years. So I kind of like that play at plus 650.
I love it. And you know why too, Mike? Because it's something we talk about all the time, especially when you come into markets like this, where it's multiple option markets where, it's not just the over or the under. It's not one or the other. It's not true false. And when you have markets like this, it's okay to sprinkle some dollars on a guy like Jerick McKinnon down here at plus 650. And I actually love the pick because when you look at what they did in previous playoff runs and in previous seasons, they didn't use Jerick McKinnon quite as much offensively this year in terms of how they isolated him in man coverage in the red zone. It's something I highlighted a lot last playoff run, and I took Jerick McKinnon touchdowns a ton last playoff run, and I got hammered from him going down on that play, and I lost quite a bit. But it was still just sound logic where Andy Reid does get creative, especially in the red zone. And what better way to expand on that creativity than to pull out some of the old plays that were really successful for you last playoff run with a player you still have on your roster. So I'm right there with it. I love that pick. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it just feels like, they're not going to force it, obviously, and give him like 3 straight. They're going to try and score. It just feels like they're going to give him one really good chance to score, and we'll see. If he gets it, and we cash out, or if he doesn't, well, the logic was hopefully there. So
what the play is? Mike? I've got the play. I know exactly what it is too. So they run this flashy little fake shovel to Travis Kelce, and they leak a little backside screen with Jerick McKinnon. They did it twice last playoffs, and they haven't run it yet. And it's super effective. bet you that that's how they get it going, because Travis Kelce has just been having the run of his life. He's been fantastic this playoff run. He's had like a 30-point jump in PFF receiving grade over the last 3 games versus his, 3 playoff games, which is just fantastic. So I'm right there with you. I can see it right now. I'm literally envisioning the play and I see it happening. So I'm right there with you. I like it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's cash it. I'm tailing Mike on this one. V, same question. A lot of options in this market too. You have, the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce narrative. We could get that at even money. You have either of the dynamic receivers over in San Francisco. Which way are you going here with this market?
Yeah, I'm going to hit the receivers, one on each team. We'll start with the Kansas City, Rashee Rice plus 145. That one looks pretty nice to me. San Fran's secondary has not looked overly great so far in the playoffs. Got torched by Green Bay, Romeo Doubs, Jalen Reed, Dontavian Wicks really had their way with them, not too much issue. Same thing against Detroit, another big game from Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams got to the end zone. Josh Reynolds should have had a big game. He just dropped a couple passes, but they were there. I'm just not seeing a lot of resistance from this San Fran secondary, whether it's Ambry Thomas, Tre'Davious Ward, whoever it is. Really missing Hufanga in the secondary there for San Fran. So I think there should be definitely plenty of room for Rice to pick up some catches and get in the end zone there. For San Fran, I'll take Brandon Ayuk at plus 175. Dude is just a beast. He can make any kind of play you want. That catch against Detroit was obviously incredible. We're never going to stop watching that replay. Just crazy control or confidence by him to come down with that one. So it's going to be a little more difficult against this KC secondary that has been very stingy. I don't think they've allowed any wide receiver to score except for Tyreek Hill in the wild card round. But other than that, they've been very, very stout. So it'll be a little bit tougher, but he is good enough to beat one of these guys on any given down. So I'll take Ayuk at plus 175.
I'm right there with you. I think that's sound logic. When we talk about Rashee Rice to start with, fantastic player in the slot. He is one of the top after the catch receivers. The Chiefs use him on screens. They use him in all sorts of short routes. I'm pretty sure I would have to look. I don't have the piece right in front of me. I wrote a piece this week over at PFF for the all Super Bowl team, the best players off the Super Bowl team, and Rashee Rice, one of the top graded receivers at routes under 9 yards, on targets under 9 yards. He's been fantastic. He's absolutely electric. And when he gets to go up against a guy like Diamador Lenore, who is still a fantastic corner, yet when he goes into the slot, he suffers a little bit. It's been a bit of a narrative for him. He's by no means a bad player, but that can be his susceptible nature. And when you come up against a guy like Andy Reid, who has a weapon in the slot, it is a tough matchup to say the least. And when we go on the other side, Brandon Ayuk has been so fantastic. It's incredible to watch him play. He has been amazing. I didn't quite make a bet, didn't quite cash a bet on him last week, but he was still fantastic. Love watching that catch. And when you talk about potential matchups with Kansas City secondary, Debo is going to see a ton of Trent McDuffie in the slot. And then when you think about Brandon Ayuk on the outside, he's going to get some combination of L'Jarius Sneed. That's kind of where you'd want to attack the secondary. While L'Jarius Sneed's not bad by any means, that's probably where I would want to go versus trying to attack Trent McDuffie. So I'm right there with you. I think those are both really, really good logic on that. And Chris is back with us. Thanks, Chris. We know that some stuff came up. Appreciate you dropping back in here. So we were talking about anytime touchdown props, but Chris, I do just want to get your general take on the game as well. How are you seeing this one play out specifically?
Oh yeah, I was still listening on the headphones. I just had to take care of a few things, but I unfortunately am on the opposite side of each of you guys. I think I actually have a lot of faith in the Niners. And no, not just because I need them to beat Patrick Mahomes to preserve Tom Brady's legacy. I genuinely, I picked the 49ers. I did a little bracket or whatever before the playoffs, and I actually had the 49ers beating the Ravens. Pretty similar outcomes. I think I had the Ravens beating the Texans in the No, I had the Ravens beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, but I just have had faith in the 49ers all year. I've kind of seen them as when they're really good, I don't see anybody stopping them too. I mean, they clearly regular season, you saw a few times where they were kind of shut down, but I just think that when you look at their best on best, it's hard to stop that team. It's hard to stop Christian McCaffrey running the ball. And if you focus too much on that, Kansas City obviously has a really good secondary, but I just feel like the weapons that they have on the 49ers are just a little bit too much for the Kansas City Chiefs to actually handle. So I did take the cheat. I think I had the 49ers -2 from where I saw. I think I looked on FanDuel if I'm not mistaken. And then 47.5. I actually picked the over. I know that you guys had a few good reasons why it was a pretty good reason to take the under, but the way that I see it playing out, I just think that this is going to be a back and forth game. I think both teams are really good at identifying each other's weaknesses. You know, the running game for the 49ers hasn't been that good, so the Chiefs can kind of take advantage of that. The 49ers, I feel like they could take advantage wherever they want. The Chiefs are obviously, like I said, really good, but I feel like they could put up points when they need to. I just also kind of just hoping for a points game, you know, maybe not like not a low scoring game, but that's kind of my perspective on it. And as far as touchdowns go, I think in my the props that we have, I did take McCaffrey 2 touchdowns. That's one that I'm really interested in because I know the 1 touchdown is a little bit, you know, not that much value, but I do actually think Christian McCaffrey could put up 2 touchdowns. He's done it before, and I think they're going to lean on him not only in the run but in the pass. But yeah, I think that he's a guy who could probably score 2 touchdowns. But and then on the Chiefs side, the Rashee Rice, I think you guys made a good point on him as well, how he has a good opportunity against the 49ers secondary to kind of get the ball in any way, shape, or form and be used to the best of his abilities.
Yeah. No, and I'm right there with you. I really like your pick for Christian McCaffrey 2 touchdowns. That's something that I touched on last week where, you know, he is very efficient when they get him into a lot of touches. And that was an opportunity for them to take advantage of Detroit. And it ended up working out in the end for them. And I think potentially here you could see another mismatch here with Charles Omenihu going down and Mike Dana going to be getting a potentially larger role at right edge going up against Trent Williams. Christian McCaffrey running behind Trent Williams has just been fantastic all season. I mean, he's a road grader, best run blocking left tackle in the league, bar none. And to get that type of matchup is something that I think Kyle Shanahan's offense is feast on. And it's going to be something that we will definitely see happening for sure. And so now that we can break into some of the props here, and some of the props on the board I really like. So first one that you guys both highlighted here, that being V and Mike, is a little bit of some Brock Purdy action. So you guys are targeting some of the rushing props. I know specifically Mike is liking the rushing props on both quarterbacks, which I think is a really interesting opportunity as well. V, you are on the side of Brock Purdy over 12.5 rushing yards. Let's start with Mike here. Mike, what's your take for that on getting both of these quarterbacks with Brock Purdy? It's at 12.5 yards. With Mahomes, it's at 25.5 yards. What is your take on this one?
Yeah, I like both of them. Obviously, starting with Mahomes, he just in the playoffs there's an uptick from his regular season in rushing yards. He uses his legs more. We've seen it already in this playoffs, and then even more so. I think he's gone over 30 yards rushing in every Super Bowl. The 3 other Super Bowls he's played in. So I just think when he gets to the playoffs, he starts to use his legs more. You know, obviously regular season, don't want to get hurt, but this is go time. So I really like that. And potentially, you know, San Francisco, they have some good pass rushers. They can get some pressure on them, might force them out a little bit. And then kind of the same thing with Purdy. We didn't even mention it when we talked about that Lions 49ers game, but that was a huge part of them coming back was Purdy scrambling. You know, I think almost 50 yards he had. So I can see that easily happening again, especially, you know, you can kind of get some pressure in the interior with San Francisco. Chris Jones is obviously a monster. So I can see him just getting to Purdy pretty quickly. And yeah, 12.5 yards. I think that's pretty easy for me. I really like that, especially considering, again, his legs were a huge part of why they won that game and came back against Detroit. So I can see them definitely kind of go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody remembers Mahomes' broken helmet on that frigid day. What a sight. That's going to live in infamy forever. And, the Purdy line at 12.5 is super reasonable. It's not an incredibly high line, which is understandably why V is leaning on the over 2V. Is that kind of where you're sitting with that as well?
Yeah, very similar thoughts as Mike in this one. He really showed his mobility against the line, something we really hadn't seen so far through 2 years of him playing. Pretty surprised to see that he has that kind of mobility. He has the kind of speed to get out there. Now he's going up against the Kansas City defense that ranks second in the league in pressure percentage at 27.8%. So if he does get pressure, whether it's from Chris Jones or sneaky George Karlaftis has had a pretty solid couple start to his career. He's in the second year right now. He's done some good things these playoffs. So if either of those guys are able to get pressure, you feel like you can feel confident in Purdy being able to get out of the pocket and pick up some yards. He only needs to scramble, a couple of times to hit this number. So it seems pretty reasonable at 12.5. Really impressed with what he did on the ground in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes a ton of sense because he's shown the ability to not be a statue. He does have some mobility, and it might not be at the level of like a guy like Mahomes, but 12.5 being that line is, very attainable with what Brock Purdy's shown, especially with like what Mike said, scrambling late in that NFC title game was huge for them. So undoubtedly, absolutely. And, another unreasonably low just yardage line here, V. I actually have it right here. How is a guy like Kyle Juszczyk getting 4.5? When you pulled this line out, V, I was like, good Lord, 4.5 yards. I'm going to go hammer that one because this guy is essentially one catch away from going over this. Is that the way that you're heading with that, V?
Yeah, and I think the really interesting thing is if you actually look at his reception over under, it is set at 0.5. The juice on that number is minus 150. That tells you that there's almost a 60% chance that Kyle Juszczyk is going to get at least one reception. For his career, he is averaging 9.2 yards per reception. Every single year of his career, he has averaged at least 7 yards per reception. So if this total on receptions is telling you that there's almost a 60% chance he's going to get a catch, then it's almost guaranteed that one catch is going to go for more than 4.5 yards. So that one feels like a slam dunk to me. If you like him to get one catch, don't bet that line because that's a terrible value. Just load up on his receiving yards over at 4.5 because, there's a correlation there. If you think he's going to get a catch, he's going to get over 4.5 yards.
He could have a 25-yard catch. Like that's the type of fullback he is. He's not a regular fullback. So I'm right there with you. And I think this is a game of some incredibly crazy priced lines. I don't have it in front of me, but Chris, you highlighted here one for MVS at 19.5 receiving yards, and you're liking the over there. Tell us a little bit about your thought on that one.
I just think that over the past, there's clearly during the regular season, there's been a lot of narrative. Oh, MVS, not good, unreliable. And while that might be true to some extent, I do feel like when it comes down to it, we were talking Rashee Rice is that guy that's going to go over the middle, get you those short yardage catches, but turn it into a rack. MVS is the guy who's going to be downfield. Like he's probably not going to get targeted anywhere shorter than 10 to 15 yards upfield. And for him to get an extra 5 to 10 yards on that, if he has a little bit of space, I think he could do that in one catch. He could have 1 or 2 catches in the game and clear 19.5. And maybe they're a lot smarter than me, and that's probably not a maybe. They are most certainly smarter than me making that the over-under. So, maybe they're trying to reel a guy like me in to see if I could, bet that over because I'm that confident. But I really do think that MVS, if he gets a catch or two, if the game's close, Mahomes is looking for somebody in man coverage, MVS beats his guy, he gives him a chance because when it comes down to it, who else is he going to trust? If they're doubling Kelsey, if they're playing too good a coverage on him, which you can't really do, but if he's not open on that play, if he doesn't find Rashee Rice, he's got to look downfield. He needs a big play. He's going to look for MVS. If he gets open, one-on-one coverage, going to give him a chance. And I like the odds of him even getting that on one catch, maybe even 2 catches. I don't think he's going to have that big of a game. I don't think he's going to do anything too important, but a 20-yard catch I think that's well in reason for a guy like him. And honestly, I still haven't like sat down and looked at some of these props, but I didn't even see this Kyle Juszczyk prop. That's why I'm literally going to add that to my parlay. I'm going to make a parlay with that right now, like right after the
Yeah,
that is so low on that. And then Brock Purdy, one more. I didn't add this on mine, but Brock Purdy touchdown plus 900. I know that means that he has to score the touchdown, which I didn't know. Funny story, like a few years ago when the Packers and Bucks were playing and Aaron Rodgers scored threw a passing touchdown, I was so happy I thought it hit, but then I didn't realize that it was like the player actually had to score. Nope. But plus 900 seems like a pretty low one for a guy who's going to be running around a lot. So I don't know. That might be a pretty good one too. But the Kyle Juszczyk one is insane.
Yeah, and and your take with MVS, I really like that because what that throw at the end of the AFC title game showed is that Mahomes is trusting and willing to still put that ball there with the game on the line, which can mean a lot more for this game moving forward in terms of like how many targets he might have gotten if, say, he doesn't trust him like that. And I think that 19.5 is a very reasonable number to get at. And when we talk about another just crazy line, one of the things that I've been targeting here, something I've been unraveling in my science lab here, is actually a kind of piggyback on a bet that Mike has down here, which is a very interesting one that I like, with Noah Gray over receiving yards. And he has it looks like 12.5 or 11.5, depending on where you're shopping. And Mike, you're liking the over on this one. And I'm going to let you start it off. And then I'm going to come in behind you with some of the ramblings of a madman who's lost his mind long ago. Sound good?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, this is a fun one. I mean, 12.5 or 11.5, wherever you're getting it, just feels slightly too low. I mean, they've been using him more in the playoffs. He has 8 targets in the last 2 games. And it just feels like, all the attention's on Kelsey and Taylor Swift and all this stuff. Kelsey's the man. And then wouldn't it just be great? Like the first play of the game is just like Noah Gray for a 20-yard pass or something, So the narrative of that. And it's a little bit of a callback because all the way back to, our first Thursday fantasy football starter sit, and Noah Gray was a big topic because Kelsey missed that first week. So, Jason was all in. So it's just a little bit of a callback to that as well. So I kind of like the 12.5, especially again, seeing 5 catches over the last 2 games combined and the 8 targets. I like the odds there for him to get a nice 15-yard catch.
Yeah, that's Jason's guy. Shout out Jason. Jason Draven. Everybody go follow him, that FF nerd on Twitter. We loved Jason here. And I like where your head's at with this one. And specifically, one of the reasons I like this is because a lot of people don't realize this. The Chiefs actually use the 4th highest rate of 2 tight end sets in the league this year. And that is going to come in handy when you go up against the linebackers that they're going to be going up against, specifically a guy like Dre Greenlaw, who is a fantastic linebacker and an excellent coverage linebacker. We don't even need to talk about how fantastic Fred Warner is. Everybody knows how good Fred Warner is. But specifically on the strong side, Dre Greenlaw draws the straw of covering quite a few tight ends. And he has actually done a very good job of it. When there's one on the field, when there are 2 on the field, he has had some struggles, and his coverage grade has actually dropped from an 86.4 with 1 tight end to a 42 coverage grade, and he allows a 116.3 passer rating. That was something that I could not understand when I was going through the numbers. And it's incredible to see that this team specifically is set up to run those 2 tight end sets and take advantage of that. I think you could see Noah Gray getting over this line. Travis Kelce, who's obviously been fantastic, he's going to get a lot of attention. He has a much higher line at 70.5 yards last time I checked. And I still think that is a fairly attainable line as well, even if he's getting a ton of attention, because these are the setups that cause this defense some struggles. And that could definitely turn out to be, what we see happening. I think that a lot will go into this game, but I think tight end play being a very key point was not something that I saw before this matchup started unraveling for sure. So an interesting one. And then, Mike, I'll get your take real quick before we head into some other ones, just because I have it right in front of me. Brandon Ayuk, 59.5 receiving yards. Which way are you leaning for that?
It was originally on the under here, and then the more I think about it and just hearing you guys talk, it's like, with Debo and his matchup, it just feels like Ayuk is going to hit that over. If you can bump it up maybe to like a 62 and a half, I might take the under, but I do like the Ayuk over. I think on these plays that kind of break down and Purdy scrambles, it feels like Ayuk is the guy that seems to just find that hole in the zone or in the defense. And, so I can see one or two of those kind of happening. And yeah, it just feels like Ayuk's going to need kind of pretty big game here for the 49ers to win. So originally I was on the under, now I'm on the over. I'm curious as to what you guys think on that 59.5 number.
Well, no, I think you have sound logic. When you get up to a number like 62, 70, those numbers, you do have to start considering, hey, really good player, maybe an under is a possibility. At 59.5 yards, I think you continue to gain value. V, what's your take with something like that?
Yeah, interestingly enough, it did open up at 63.5. So it's kind of closer to that number that Mike was talking about, but it seems like it's been bet down to 59.5. This one kind of seems a little bit right on that edge for me. Don't really feel too strongly either way. I could see anything happening in this game. If Purdy is, playing well, he's firing on all cylinders, this one can hit. But if, that Chiefs defense gets to him, they're pressuring him and he's, making mistakes, this one could be a little bit harder to hit. So really feels like it's going to be game flow dependent. This one might be more interesting to bet in game to see how the game starts off, to see how Purdy is looking. If you think he's looking pretty comfortable in the game, can hit this. You could bet this game over in game. Otherwise, you could bet it under in game. Probably something I'll stay away from though pregame at this number.
Yeah, and another super interesting one when we look at it, like receptions on a guy like this with 4.5. That's a very modestly priced line here, especially when you can. It looks like at the best you can get at plus 130. So another reason, like we talk about, even when they're all the same, make sure everybody's going and shopping around. So I could definitely see it as an interesting line for sure. And I really do like where you are leaning on that one. And, it does play into something that Chris has on here too, which I actually don't have a graphic for. But Chris, you were leaning on the way of CMC in 18.5 attempts. Which way were you leaning with that one?
I was actually leaning more towards the under on that because I just think that Kansas City last weekend, obviously they didn't really have to do much in order to stop it, but I don't know, surprisingly, their linebackers, even with the injuries, I think Willie Gay was the one that was injured. Or it was Willie Gay was the one that was out. So then Drew Tranquil had to come in. And if he's good for anything, it's run stopping. I don't know how good he's been at it recent years, like PFF grade wise, because I haven't really checked in on that. But I just see him, he's quintessential run stopper, athletic linebacker. Same thing with Nick Bolton. Those guys back there at the linebackers, they're maybe not the same quality name as Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, but I do think that Kansas City does have, like we've been saying this whole entire time, a tough defense. So if they can kind of get them out of the run, or if they make it a game where it's kind of a back and forth shootout, I just don't see a way where San Francisco is going to try and force CMC, force feed him a whole bunch of carries. I think that he's useful when you're spreading him, out wide or just letting him catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think that this could be a really big game out of the backfield for Christian McCaffrey. I know I'm very original in my take there, but it's just seems like more of a game where he might have more of a effect on the game through the air. Whereas I just think trying to run up the middle, trying to make plays like that, they probably won't have much success if they try to do that, 20 to 25 times with him and take away him getting out in open space as much.
Yeah. And, an interesting thing with any player, you don't always get the touches in both facets of the game. like CMC has. And you did bring up a great point with the Chiefs linebackers where, Chanel, he's been fantastic stopping the run. Tranquil, he's been very good stopping the run as well. They both graded very highly in the conference round. Nick Bolton too, as much as Nick Bolton has struggled a little bit since breaking his hand or his wrist or whatever. He's still a very quality linebacker. He might struggle in coverage from time to time, but he does still have a nose for fitting the run. So yeah, I could definitely see that being a potential spot. And, an interesting one that could lead away from that is one that I highlighted, which I also don't have another graphic here, but one that I was loving is Nick Bosa has a fantastic matchup here with Jawan Taylor, where he could just absolutely eat. Jawan Taylor has struggled in the playoffs. It's been a tough go for him in pass protection. And Nick Bosa is just having a phenomenal postseason. He's having a phenomenal season. I know he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year, but he is another reason why it is the era of the edge rusher, because he has still been fantastic. And for him to get a sack is at decent odds, but I like for him to actually record the most sacks. And now that could potentially end at 1. So I think that at plus 250 to get Nick Bosa with that type of matchup to finish with the most sacks is definitely a value there. And it actually leads into another one that you were looking at, V, which is the second half total. And it looks like it was set at 23.5, and you're leaning on the under there. Tell me a little bit about your thought process with that one.
Yeah, this is one of those trends that I think people probably have not paid too much attention to this year, because it's kind of one of those random, in-game second half unders that feels weird to bet a second half, total or spread before the game has even started. But this is an option for people to bet. And for Kansas City, the second half under has hit an 18 out of 20 games this year. So this really is a piggyback off of, total game unders. Part of the reason why those have been hitting so much this year is because in the second half, Kansas City's defense, as good as it is, in the first half, they turn it up a notch. In the second half, they just really shut down opposing offenses, and their own offense really starts sputtering out a little bit in the second half as well. I think it speaks a lot to the adjustments that they make at halftime, picking up on opposing offensive trends and what they're trying to do, players that they're trying to highlight. And then Spags comes in the second half and is able to make crucial adjustments to slow them down. So 23.5 seems very high for, again, a team that has hit the under on this one 18 out of 20 times. In the game against the Ravens, there were 3 total points scored in the second half. Against Buffalo, there were all those points scored in the first half, and then things really just completely shut down in the second half. So this is a very fantastic Chiefs defense, especially in the second half. So if you're going to bet the game under, you're definitely going to want to bet second half under at 23.5.
Yeah, I completely agree. You hit the nail on the head. That's the perfect way to put it, because they do just turn it up a notch. They're really great with adjustments on both sides of the ball, frankly. So and that comes down to their creativity too. And in terms of creativity, no one gets more creative than Andy Reid. And that leads into the next bet that I really like, which is actually a player to record a passing attempt. And I'm on the side of Taylor Swift's own Travis Kelce at plus 1,400. He threw a red zone touchdown in the wild card round. I think they're just super creative with how they can use him, and he's not afraid to throw it. They can, scheme it in the red zone package. Now, this one's obviously at plus 1,400. They're all long shots at that point. So sprinkle just a few dollars there if you like a little adverse heart attack every time you enter the red zone. So that's where we go with that one. But that's it for our props, and we're going to definitely throw all of those in the Discord. So for anybody who is not in the Discord, hit us up, importantnonsense.com, become a member. That's how you get access to our Discord, and in there we talk about all the bets, all the stuff happening in the offseason, and we'll put all of our bets into there. So do not worry at all about that. And the last market we're going to take a look at, the most interesting market here. There's quite a few players on this list. Unfortunately for our notes here, I only listed down to Nick Bosa at plus 12,500, which I'll get into in a second. But a lot of good players on this list. Mahomes at the top here at plus 150. Purdy obviously behind him plus 235. And then you have the array of skill players here. So Mike, I want to start with you first and foremost. Who's taking home the MVP when this is all said and done?
Yeah, so if we're thinking the Chiefs are gonna win this game, I really like Pacheco at plus 3,300. He's just kind of been their engine this year, especially in the playoffs. I mean, we've seen what the last two games that San Francisco's played. They gave up over 6 yards a carry to David Montgomery, over 6 yards a carry to Aaron Jones. I think Jahmyr Gibbs had over 4 yards a carry or close to it. So I could see this game of just it being Pacheco's game. If it's a low scoring game, which we're kind of thinking that has a good chance to be, Pacheco gets 100 total yards, maybe a couple touchdowns. Who knows? I really like that plus 3,300. And is there something to that we get a little bored with Mahomes Super Bowl MVP once again? I think it had something to do with like the defensive player of the year this year. TJ Watt had already won it. Let's give it to someone new. Coach of the year is always like that as well. So it could be a situation where it's like, yeah, we can't give it to Mahomes again. So why not give it to someone like Pacheco? That'd be a pretty cool story as well, considering, 7th round draft pick and everything. So I like him, and I like the Rashee Rice at plus 6,600 also. If we're just, going that route of, are they going to give it to Mahomes again? So it's a little harder for a receiver to get it, considering the quarterback has to throw it to him. But both those guys on the Chiefs side. And then if you are strong feeling about San Francisco, I kind of like just taking like the lowest, George Kittle being at plus 8,000. Like you could kind of see any one of these guys going off: Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, McCaffrey, obviously. So why not just take the best value there, maybe to sprinkle a little bit there. And I could see Kittle potentially having a big game as well. So, but I really like the Pacheco one the most.
Yeah, all knees and elbows, Pacheco. We love Pacheco here. Pacheco, big friend of the show. Isaiah, you ever want to come on the show? We got a spot for you. And no, I really like your analysis with Rice. The good thing about Rice is that he's all after the catch. So, he does have to get the ball thrown to him, but he's got to make it happen at some point. And so if any receiver were, that could definitely be him. I mean, Debo is also right there in that idea too, if you lean on the side of San Francisco. So I could definitely see it. Chris, same question to you, my friend. Where do you see the MVP war lying this year?
See, I'm kind of on the fence on who I kind of want to take. You really can't go wrong with taking a quarterback and just kind of assuming that one of them will win it. But if you look at the past two that I can remember, I've tried to think a little bit further, or if there are any other two recently. I think it was Julian Edelman and Cooper Kupp were like the two most recent wide receivers to win it. Julian Edelman, that wasn't a high-scoring game. I don't even think he didn't even score a touchdown in that game, but he was the entire offense on that. But I think a wide receiver, and then Cooper Kupp obviously had a really good game. I don't know I think he might have scored the 2 touchdowns, but I know he had an insane. Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns, and then obviously a high target reception and yardage. So I think that's kind of the formula for a wide receiver to win it. Meaning, like if a Deebo Samuel were to win it, or a Rashee Rice, I don't really know if I can see those two winning it. Obviously, they have pretty decent odds, and it's not like it's impossible. I think if somebody's going to be the guy to win it, I like Brandon Ayuk out of all those wide receivers or skill position players. Travis Kelce, too, could probably win it if he gets, maybe 10 to 12 receptions, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a perfect formula for winning the Super Bowl MVP as a wide receiver. But Brandon Ayuk is a guy who, if he has 8 to 10 catches, over 150 yards, and he scores 2 touchdowns, he's the entire focal point of the offense, and the 49ers win. Brock Purdy turns the ball over a couple times. I think that's a perfect formula for Brandon Ayuk. So if I do end up betting somebody that isn't a quarterback, I might just throw money on Ayuk and, see if that's something that can happen.
Yeah, a huge value at plus 6,000 and just like you said, that's exactly how we shop this market too. When V and I go into this market, we're probably going to place money on the quarterback that we think is going to win the game, which is going to be Mahomes. And then we're going to sprinkle dollars in a little bit further down the line. And V's laughing because I know exactly. Go ahead.
You said so factually that Mahomes is going to win this game. There's not even a doubt about it.
V, come on. You know me. V, who do you have taking this one home?
It's going to be Mahomes. It's the same conversation we had last year when it was Kansas City versus Philadelphia, where we talked about in that game where if Philly is going to win that game, that is more of a team approach to Philadelphia. So there are multiple options for who could win MVP. Whereas for Kansas City, their team is really driven by Patrick Mahomes. If they're going to win, this game, very likely he's going to win MVP. And I think there is a price discrepancy there where Kansas City's money line odds are plus 110, whereas Mahomes, you can see his MVP odds here are plus 150. That's a 40-cent difference. That's pretty good value right there because, again, it's just highly unlikely if Kansas City wins that anybody else is going to win MVP. And, Chris, you might not want to hear this, but, his you want to compare him to Brady, you go back to that Super Bowl against Atlanta. James White had this monster game. They give the MVP to Tom Brady. A couple of years ago when Tampa Bay plays Kansas City, Brady had a nice stat line, but that game was really dominated by Tampa Bay's defense. They give the MVP to Tom Brady. That's just what happens in this situation. So if Kansas City is going to win this game, like a couple of us expect to happen, really hard for them to give it to anybody else besides Mahomes. So if you're getting a price discrepancy between the money line and his MVP odds, that seems like a play to me.
And if we're talking about value, V, I've got one more for you here. So I'm just going to paint you guys a picture. The Super Bowl MVP, the most narrative-based award, is now this year highlighted by the one and only super pop star sensation Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Okay, so follow me on this one. Travis Kelce, 13 receptions, 130 yards, and some other 13 number because there's apparently a conspiracy theory with 13s, and then he's going to win Super Bowl MVP. So that's just how it has to happen. No, but really, plus 1,400 for something that can potentially be narrative based, I think is a good value. If he were to have even a reasonably decent game, anywhere in the realm of say 7 to 10 catches and, anywhere from 80 to 120 yards in a big time score at some point, I could really see them leaning that they want to talk to Travis Kelce because they want to put Taylor Swift on the broadcast more. And I hate to put on the conspiracy hat, but that's exactly where I'm leaning with it. So, and that's also with being said, like I said before, we always shop markets like this with multiple options, as I'm taking probably a hefty amount on the quarterback that I think is going to win, which is Patrick Mahomes. And then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on some of these other options. One of them being Travis Kelce, or even potentially Rashee Rice or George Kittle or Brandon Ayuk or Isaiah Pacheco. Whoever you are in with, you could definitely sprinkle a little bit on there, which is also why I'm going to put a little tiny sprinkle all the way at the bottom here on Nick Bosa. I think that this could potentially be a game. If the 49ers are going to win, I think that they're going to have to show out a dominant defensive performance, something they've struggled a little bit with recently, but they've shown a lot of this season. And one of the reasons is you have a guy like Nick Bosa. He's got a premier matchup against Jawan Taylor. If he is to eat in this one, say he gets a pair of sacks, one of them's a forced fumble, maybe it ends up in a touchdown, I could definitely see that being a Von Miller-esque Super Bowl MVP situation, especially given how Patrick Mahomes is a fantastic quarterback. We run into a situation where their offense hasn't quite been as explosive. So if they're to compare his past performances to his current performance, it might seem underwhelming to some voters, but who knows? They vote for this thing at freaking halftime anyway. So I guess we'll see when it comes out. But all right, that's Super Bowl MVP, boys. I think we definitely effectively hit every single player on the list, but now we get to head into some of the fun things. So there are quite a bit of novelty props, gentlemen, quite a few. And thanks to our friends over at Sports Illustrated, why does my antivirus go off every time I go to your website? Can we relax maybe with the ads? Thank you, Sports Illustrated. So after I close 6 ads, we've got a bunch of them. There's classics from the coin toss. Everybody knows. I'm not going to bother asking you guys about the national anthem length. Shout out Reba. But
I did see a insider information. I saw a video where someone asked the artificial intelligence Android, and they asked about the national anthem length, and this AI said over 90 seconds. So I'm going to bow down to our overlords there, and I'm going to go over. I think it's set at 80 something. Just saying. Insider information.
It looks like Sports Illustrated is putting it at 90 and a half seconds. Ooh, so man. I think we're right on the money there. That's going to be an interesting one. Shout out to ChatGPT there. So we have with all novelties, as everybody knows, it all just depends on where you shop. Go around, shop around. A lot of times you might even have to go to some of the overseas ones for these ones like Bravada. You did not hear that from me. But there are some good ones here still too. Some classics that I definitely want to touch on with the guys here. The first one being Jersey to score the first touchdown. That line here is set at 22.5. Over gives you Kelsey, Kittle, CMC. Under gives you Pacheco, Rice, Debo, Ayuk, and either quarterback. Rapid fire V. Over or under on this one, my guy?
I'm going to take the over on this one. Very hard to pass up the combination of both Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce. Two good players right there. Can't pass on that one.
Absolutely, absolutely. Same question, Mike.
Yeah, I got to go over on that one, even though you know, more players on the bottom there. But yeah, Kelsey, CMC, just touchdown machines.
A lot of production up there. Chris, are you going the other way here, or which way are we leaning?
I think I'll go the over just because I know even if the Chiefs do get a lot closer, they might try and throw it to Kelsey or somebody with a higher number. So I would have to go with the over on that. Plus, I read it wrong when I first saw it. For some reason, I thought Christian McCaffrey was 22, but then I realized he was 23. So I'm like, oh, yeah, that's easy, 23. So, yeah, I would have to go with the over with you guys.
That would be a shoo-in if they put him on the under there. All right, and another one. Gents, how many times is Taylor Swift appearing on the broadcast in this one?
Well, are we counting post-game as part of the broadcast? Because if Kansas City wins, they're not going to show anybody but her, right? So
that's a good question.
If you're counting post-game as part of this broadcast and, you know, they're handing out the trophy and MVP, whatever, she's going to be there the whole time. I'm going to take the over on this one.
You've got a good point there. And again, I like where your head's at. I'm taking over because 4.5 is well under our theoretical conspiracy theory line of 13. So I like it too. Mike, over under here.
I'll go over it. Someone has to have the numbers, right, about what the average is per game that she gets shown. So I assume it's right around this number if that's what they're setting it at. So I mean, let's go over. It's the Super Bowl. Come on.
If you open up the gifts bar and just type in Taylor Swift Chiefs, there are like 30 gifts. So I think the average is probably over 4 for sure. Chris, are you leaning the same way? What are you thinking?
Easily over 4.5, just because
easily.
Anything that has to do with some type of Travis Kelce play, they seem to shoot it up to her. And even if they're trying to give the mom's reaction, I'm pretty sure she's going to be with the mom. She's going to be with Jason as well. So whoever they want to kind of put in there, they're all three going to be bunched together. So whenever they're trying to show somebody else, she's probably going to be in the camera as well. The halftime montage is going to be her reacting. Going into the fourth quarter, she's going to be biting her nails and freaking out about some play that happened.
Does that count? Are replays of her being shown count as new versions of her being shown? Like,
you know what? That's a good question.
It's definitely over. Right?
The odds makers have to iron this out too. And, you know, and when we talk about it here, like this number has to be directly correlated to how many targets he's going to have in the game. I mean, if we really talk about it. So, all right, gents, next one on the list here, we have Usher's first song. I won't lie. I did not even realize Usher was doing the halftime show until I looked at this. Do you guys remember any Usher songs? Or I'm old enough to remember Usher. I'm old enough to remember Usher.
Unfortunately, we all are. Unfortunately. We're old.
All right, boys. Which song are we playing?
I'm going to take Oh My God at plus 145. Easy song to start off with. Nobody else needs to join in. So sounds like a good way to start to me.
Easy. Mike, on to you.
Man, I'm gonna go with Yeah, because that's probably the one I'm most familiar with. So we're gonna go with that one there.
I like
+4, +430.
I like that, Mike. You know what? I feel like we would get down to some at the club if it played. Chris, you know, I feel like you might be a bit of a sentimental guy. Are you somewhere towards the bottom, or where are we heading with this one?
I just think, and I would have to admit that not only do I remember Usher, I am a pretty big Usher fan, especially his newer stuff. But not newish stuff like mid-20 teens, but none of those seem to be on here. I do got to say, of all these songs, I know all of them. The only 3 that stand out to me that would have that type of beat that could lead in to starting the show would have to be those second, third, and fourth. It would either be OMG, Yeah, or DJ Got It. So they have that startup beat that kind of gets you pumped up. Those are the only 3 that I could really see if it's any like Love in This Club is a slow song. All those other ones are a little bit slower. Those are maybe more
Burn
towards
is
the middle.
super slow. That's not something you start off as right?
Nothing else but those 2, 3, and 4 right there are songs that you would probably start off on. But I would have to agree, if I had to bet on one, it would have to be OMG. But I could also see DJ Got Us Falling in Love. That startup is, iconic. So one of those three seemed to be the favorite for me.
I just looked it up. Yeah, the length of the song is 4 minutes and 13 seconds. So you got the 13 in there.
I think
there you go.
We figured it out, boys. We're on to something. All right, and I got one more on here that I don't see on my list, unfortunately, but I got it for you. We'll read it out loud. Gents, we've got the Philly special prop. I saw this one on FanDuel or maybe DraftKings, I forget. Will either quarterback score a receiving touchdown? I don't have what no is, but yes was plus 5,000. V, which way are you leaning on that one?
Man, you cannot put your quarterbacks at risk of getting hurt. I'm going to take the no on this one.
Makes sense. Mike?
I'm going to say yes. You just got to add to the legend of Patrick Mahomes. Like, he does it all. Like, he has to catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl at some point.
Yes, Mike. Yes.
Let's put $1 on it. Why not?
I love it, Mike. You know what? We're dreamers. V is the logical and sound-minded one. He always has been. But, Mike, we are dreamers. Chris, which way are you leaning with the Philly special?
Let me just say that I do hate that it's called the Philly special for obvious reasons. And then I was about to make an argument that was like, well, like Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes are kind of athletic, but they don't really run that much. And who's the guy who caught the touchdown? Nick Foles, who is not really the most athletic guy. So
that was a 2-point conversion, though, so that would not have counted on this prop, correct? Because that's not a touchdown.
That is correct. You are right.
So on this,
go ahead.
I would have to say I'll probably go with no, just because I think Mike made a good point. V made a good point where you don't want to get either one of them hurt. And the Travis Kelce could probably throw a touchdown and have it be accurate. George Kittle, I'm not too sure on that one. And it's usually a tight end, but you could have Christian McCaffrey throw it. But they usually don't put Brock Purdy in that many. Brock Purdy, most of his running plays or plays like that are off schedule. Like, he has to do it because there's no other play to make, and he's just using his feet. If anybody's going to do it, it's Patrick Mahomes. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I could see it too. You never know what's going to happen. So it's going to be an interesting draw. But gents, the last one, and obviously my favorite for anybody who's ever watched this show for any amount of time, and V is already rolling his eyes, and I absolutely love it. The Gatorade color poured on the winning coach, my speciality. Unfortunately, did not get it last year because I think the Chiefs were trolling. I think they knew purple was the longest odds, and they did it. But let's get into some of the data here, boys. Purple now the top odds because they dumped it. The Chiefs dumped it last year. Yellow and green, again, still way overvalued at plus 300. Orange is fantastic. Orange is the most used color over the last 2 decades. It was last seen in 2020 by Kansas City. So you got to keep that in mind. Red is never a value. It's never, ever been used. And why has it never been used? Let me ask you guys, have you ever drinking a red Gatorade and not thought, man, that was really filling? Because the red Gatorade is so filling. It's so much filler. They don't use it. This is science. I promise. Okay. And then the last one on the list, guys, the math for clear or water is just there because you have to understand the logic stands that even if they have Gatorade, a portion of those jugs are going to be water. So the chances of it being clear or even potentially glacier white cherry, an underrated flavor of Gatorade, I don't see how you could lean anywhere but clear and orange. Now, some people are going to want to do blue or purple, like I said, but that's a trap. And the reason being, even though it's been used the most since 2014, 3 of the 4 have all been from Tom Brady-led teams because he loves blue Gatorade. And V knows you can't trust anybody who loves the blue Gatorade. They will betray you at some point. So we don't take blue. We fade purple. Nobody likes yellow and green, even though it's a staple of the Costco variety pack. So we're sitting with orange and clear. Now, gents, let's start with you, V. Which color's getting dumped on the coach?
Well, I believe I was reading or listening to something earlier today saying it's not Gatorade this year, but actually Body Armor energy drink. So that lead towards no Gatorade bath at plus 1,600 because it's not technically Gatorade.
V, I didn't even know that. You just blew my mind.
I don't know if this is a fact or if this is just something out there, but I believe I heard that this morning. So
V, we need to do some more research. What color even is Body Armor? I
have no idea. I thought that was like a spray for your body. I didn't know there was a drink.
Oh, V, we're in trouble now. We're in trouble now. Mike, if it is Gatorade, what color is it?
I like the clear. I always go for the big odds. So give me the clear plus 1,000. Get some water in there, whatever it is. So yeah, if it's water, does it hit? It can go back to the whole.
Yeah. It hits water. It's always water clear. So it could give you white because the Glacier cherries. I mean, they're not gonna be able to tell.
Yeah.
So I like it. And Chris, to end us off with the last pick of the 2023-24 NFL season, what color of Gatorade is getting poured on the winning coach?
A lot of pressure right there. I was going to say red because obviously I know I'm colorblind, but I'm pretty sure that's both of their like main colors.
It is.
But like you said, and it kind of makes sense now that I think about it, red is more filling. So why would somebody want that, to be on the field? I'd have to go with orange. Orange seems like the favorite here. It's the closest to their colors, and it just seems like that would make the most sense as far as what would be dumped.
I like it, and I like red. Personally, red is one of my favorites, but in a sense, I'm never taking red to go play basketball at the gym. That's all I'm saying. So that does it for us, gents. What a show, and what an incredible season. It's been a wild ride. That wraps up our Superb Owl show and the 2023 season. It's been an amazing season. And real quick, I want to thank everybody who rode with us the whole season, everybody in our Discord, everybody that comes through every single week to ask questions, get picks. We really, really appreciate you guys. That's all the reason that we do this. So thank you guys so much. And of course, thank you to my partner, Vishaal. V, we get to do this every single year. It's so much fun. And getting to chill and do this with you is what makes it so much fun. So thank you, my friend. Absolutely. And V, do you have any parting words for the folks?
Another fantastic season with you, my friend Mason. So much fun. Thank you, Chris and Mike, for hopping in. Thanks to everybody watching. Long season, but it was a fun season. Hopefully everybody will be a little bit healthier next year, quarterback wise. So let's have a nice, healthy season next year, but really looking forward towards this offseason, huge offseason, big draft coming up. So I'm sure we'll have plenty of coverage for that as well on the site. So everybody look forward to that. But yeah, fantastic season, super happy. And thanks for everyone for watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody check us out, importantnonsense.com. That's how you get into our Discord, become a member. You can ask myself, V, Chris, Mike, all your questions, fantasy, betting, anything. We'd love to answer them. That helps us keep the lights on. Also, any Iron merch you want to get, promo code LOCK. We really appreciate that. Also, follow everybody here on socials and our site socials at NonsenseFF at everywhere you go. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. Definitely hit us up. Really appreciate it. And of course, our lovely guests. Thank you guys for coming on. Chris, Mike. Mike, do you have any parting words for the folks at home before we sign off here?
No, just appreciate you guys having me on. And I'm going to say just one more 13 conspiracy Harrison Butker 58-yard field goal to win 5+8, 13. And on top of it, Harrison Butker wore number 87 in college, Travis Kelce's number. So there you have it. I have the script. So
there we go. The script has been
Georgia
written.
Tech. He went to Georgia Tech. Just saying.
There you go. Yeah. We have the script has been written. And Chris, do you have anything to plug? Any parting words for the folks at home?
Not too much. Just thanks for having me on. I haven't been on many podcasts or the live shows recently. Just been busy with work, but looking forward to getting to the dynasty stuff and being more participant throughout this off season and next year. But always glad to talk to you guys. Always glad to be in the Discord and talk to the people who are in the Discord as well. But thanks for letting me on. Hope everybody has a good Super Bowl weekend. We got Saturday tomorrow. Don't eat anything. Get ready for all the feast you're going to have at your Super Bowl party. And, have a good day. Hopefully it's a good game. Hopefully everybody stays healthy and we could have, a good showdown. I want another blowout from few years ago. I wanted to be a nice, high scoring, back and forth game. Two really good teams, two of the teams that have been two of the best teams in the league this year, whether you want to admit the Chiefs were, a little bit slow to, get going, but two of the best teams in the league. Can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, I make a phenomenal buffalo chicken dip. I think you would love it, buddy. And until next time, everybody, until next season, good night and good luck.